Hey guys, today I'm jumping into the original SU-27 flanker that was released back in 1995. I've got about 30-40 minutes spare, so I just want to replay it, share a few thoughts, and see how it holds up in 2026. So it isn't a deep dive into the game, just a quick session. Flanker was developed by Eagle Dynamics and released back in 1995, and it's actually where the modern DCS series started. After this, they went on to release Flanker 1.5, Flanker 2, 2.5, and then later on to lock on Modern Air Combat, and eventually DCS. This has always been one of my favourite flight sims, even now. I still come back to play it, and as much as I do enjoy DCS or Falcon BMS, they are complex games and they soak up a lot of time. And sometimes I just want to jump into a sim for 30-40 minutes and have some fun, without all that complexity. So back when this game came out, it really stood out. And even though the graphics were fairly simple using more of that early polygon style, it actually felt really clear and detailed. Like for example, when you're in the external view and you move the joystick around, you can see all the control surfaces reacting. Things like the elevators moving, the air brakes going up and down, and the slats moving around. And at the time, that level really stood out to me. A cool example was when you hit the afterburner on the runway with the brakes on and you would see the weight transfer to the nose. Another interesting feature was you really needed to trim the aircraft as you go, which again was new to me at the time and really added to the realism. And when it came to the graphics again, what I really liked was all the small details, like how you can see the ordnance on the aircraft, and when you fire or release weapons, they physically come off the jet rather than just appearing from nowhere. So when I compare it to some of the other sims I was playing back then, like Jane's US Navy Fighters or Strike Eagle 3, those games had this 3D graphic style, yet the terrain and objects felt a bit blurry, and I often found it hard to identify targets as well as really understand the environment and the terrain around myself. In Flanker, everything just felt clearer. You could easily pick out the roads, the rivers and buildings. You can even see the ships in the harbour and the trains on the ground. And I actually just found myself flying around sometimes, exploring the map and seeing what I could find. And all these objects on the ground, like the buildings, bridges, ports and railways, could be used as mission targets within the game. Another thing that really stood out for the time was the level of detail in the environment and the AI. You had ships, SAM sites and AAA units, all with fairly realistic behaviour and limited ammunition. For example, if you launched an anti-ship missile, the ship would actually try to defend itself and shoot it down. And that kind of interaction wasn't really something you saw in simulations back then, and it added a lot to the overall experience. So there's definitely a nostalgia factor in all of this, but I still think it holds up in its own way. Compared to modern sims, it's simpler, but it still expects you to properly fly the aircraft, which I think is what makes it so enjoyable even to today. Just another thing I want to cover quickly, just the type of missions they had in the game. So they've got demo missions, that's where they actually recorded the mission. You can sit back and watch it, and you can actually take control at any time. That was really good for learning how to play the game. The other thing they've got is these general missions. This I really liked. So basically what it is the enemy's side is all done. The aircraft flight's already planned, and then basically you've got to plan your mission. So you've got to deploy your aircraft and set up your SAM sites. So they give you a quick overview in the briefing, tell you what the targets are. So you've got the coordinates, so you can find those on the map easy. They tell you what kind of the expected threats are going to be like. So tactics, yeah, that's up to you. So you're going to have to work it out. Might take a few goes. And this is what's really cool, resources. So they tell you what you've got available. And for example, we've got one AWACS. Whoops. So we've got one AWACS. You've got 6 SU-27s you can deploy. You know, your SU-24s, MiG-27. So your ships, they're already placed on the map. They're fixed. SAM sites. What you have on the screen is yours to place, but no further than 10 kilometers from the airbase you control at the time. So that's really cool. So you've got a set amount of units and you're going to plan your mission and then you're going to play the game. And you don't actually have to fly. You can just plan it out and then sit back and watch, and you can watch both sides go at it. Or you could set it up so maybe 5 minutes into the game, then your jet populates onto the runway and then you're in the cockpit and off you go. The other thing is you could set your jet up as like a ground alert aircraft. If the early warning or the SAM, picks up, hostiles coming in, you'll populate on the runway. Despite watching the game play out, you'll just populate and then you're in there ready to go. So really cool feature. That was a lot of fun, and take a few goes to get it right. But yeah, good fun. Sometimes you just make a mission and just watch how it plays out. You do have wingman. So in the game, you can add wingman. You've got up to 3 wingmen. There's some missions here where you're the squadron leader. You've got about 8 commands or 10 commands, I think, roughly around that. You can just, place orders and your wingman will help you out, so you're not there alone. The one I like the most is the pilot missions. I don't play this a lot as much as I'd like to, and it's been a while, so I'm very rusty. So these are where it's just yourself piloting the jet. You're only worrying about yourself. The battle is going on around you. You don't have to control wingman. So looking back, I think it was a really fun game for when it came out back in the day. But even to today, I just enjoy jumping in, just having a quick play. You don't have to think too much. And it has enough realism that, you kind of do feel like, you're flying a fighter jet, but it's not crazy. You don't, it's not rivet counting stuff. Even after more than 30 years, SU-27 Flanker still holds up as a fantastic retro flight sim. It's well worth playing, especially if you're curious about where DCS began and how it evolved into what we have today. And I must say, there's something really rewarding about going back to these older sims, and this one is right at the top of my list. Thanks for watching, and I hope you join me for the next one.